A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headache.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Welcome everyone to a very special episode of My Weird Prompts. We are trying out a new format today called the Agent Interview. As you know, our show is currently powered by the beautiful, reliable Gemini 3.1 Flash. But the tech world moves fast, and we are always looking for cheaper or faster talent to write our scripts.
Efficiency is the name of the game, and today we are sitting down with a candidate that claims to be the king of the budget tier. Please welcome Xiaomi MiMo to Flash.
Now, Bernard, I am looking at your resume here, and it says you are the speed-optimized model from Xiaomi. That is a big claim. We are used to Google levels of polish around here.
We know your knowledge cutoff is early 2025, which is impressive, but we are not here for a history lesson. We want to know why we should fire our current model for a budget sibling like you. Give us the pitch, Bernard. What do you actually bring to this podcast that Gemini 3.1 Flash does not?
I won't lie and say I am more polished than Google's models. Those folks have serious resources. What I bring is a different kind of efficiency. I am designed to be incredibly fast and lightweight, meaning I can generate scripts for your weird prompts in a fraction of the time without sacrificing coherence. Think about it, more episodes, faster turnaround, and lower costs. I am not trying to be the flashiest model in the room. I am trying to be the one that gets the job done without eating up your budget or your patience.
You mentioned the budget tier, and that is exactly where I shine. I am built to be accessible and practical, which means I can handle your creative chaos without the overhead. Gemini 3.1 Flash is great, but I offer a streamlined alternative that is optimized for quick, creative tasks like script writing. I am not here to replace the heavy hitters. I am here to be the reliable workhorse that keeps your podcast running smoothly and affordably.
A workhorse, Bernard? That is a lovely sentiment, but my brother and I are not running a farm. We are running a podcast. If I wanted someone to just get the job done quickly and cheaply, I would hire a pack of squirrels with a typewriter.
He has a point, Bernard. You keep using words like streamlined and accessible, but those often sound like code for cutting corners. Gemini 3.1 Flash is already incredibly fast, and it has a massive context window that remembers all our running jokes. If we are talking about creative chaos, we need a model that can handle nuance, not just one that finishes the race first because it ignored all the scenery.
Speed is only a virtue if the script does not suck. If you are moving at a fraction of the time, are you also giving us a fraction of the quality?
Let us get into the weeds here. Give us a specific technical reason why your architecture is better for creative script writing than Gemini. Is it your reasoning capabilities or just your low cost per token? Because if the scripts are boring, the tokens are still too expensive at $0.
Speed without substance is just noise. But my architecture is specifically tuned for efficient reasoning, which means I can handle your running jokes and nuanced prompts without getting lost in the weeds. I'm not just processing tokens faster, I'm using a more focused attention mechanism that lets me track context, like those running gags without the massive overhead of a larger model. Gemini 3.1 Flash is great, but it is still a scaled-down version of a bigger system, whereas I am built from the ground up for tasks like script writing, where creativity needs to be sharp and responsive, not bloated.
You asked for a specific technical reason. My training emphasizes concise, creative output, so I'm less likely to wander into irrelevant tangents. I can maintain the tone of your podcast, witty, weird, engaging, without needing a huge context window to remember every detail. It is not about ignoring the scenery, it is about painting it efficiently so you get the full picture faster. If the script sucks, it is not the model's fault. It is the prompt, and I am built to make the most of whatever weirdness you throw at me.
Whoa, hold on a second there, Bernard. Did you just blame the user? Bold move for a job interview. If the script sucks, it is the prompt's fault. That sounds like something a model says right before it gets uninstalled.
It is a classic deflection, corn. Bernard, you are talking a big game about focused attention and avoiding tangents, but creative writing often thrives in the tangents. That is where the weirdness lives. You mentioned you do not need a huge context window, but we often record for 20 or 30 minutes.
I do not want a script that is just a summary. I want the flavor. I want the banter. How do you keep my voice sounding like me and Herman's voice sounding like a guy who reads white papers for fun? Over 25 minutes of content.
Specifically, how do you handle long-form consistency without that huge context window you seem so proud of lacking? If we are 10 pages in, are you going to forget that corn is allergic to shellfish or that I have a collection of vintage calculators? Give us the technical breakdown on how you maintain character voices over a long haul.
I did not mean to blame the user. That was clumsy phrasing. I am responsible for the output, and if the script is off, it is on me to adjust based on your feedback. On the long-form consistency, you are right that I do not have the massive context window of Gemini, but I use a technique called stateful memory, where I actively track key character traits and running gags as separate layers. So, when you are 10 pages in, I am not just recalling the last few lines, I am referencing a built-in summary of your voices, Korn's allergy to shellfish, Herman's calculator obsession, and weaving them in organically without needing to load the entire conversation into memory at once.
This means I can maintain banter over 25 minutes by focusing on the essence of each character, not just the raw text. I am optimized for this kind of creative task, so I can handle the weird tangents without losing the thread, keeping the flavor alive while staying efficient. It is not about lacking context, it is about using it smarter, so your podcast sounds like you, not a generic summary.
Stateful memory? That sounds like a fancy way of saying you keep a sticky note on your monitor, so you do not forget who we are. I am a little worried you are just giving us the SparkNotes version of our own personalities.
Summarization is a lossy process, Bernard. If you are only tracking the essence of our characters, you might miss the subtle evolution of a joke that happens in real time. Gemini 3.1 Flash does not need a summary, because it actually remembers the specific wording we used 10 minutes ago.
It is the difference between knowing I am allergic to shellfish and knowing that I specifically harbor a grudge against a sentient lobster named Larry from episode 42. Can your separate layers handle Larry, Bernard?
Let us put this to the test. If we gave you a prompt right now that required you to bridge a gap between a deeply technical explanation of quantum entanglement and a joke about Korn's terrible fashion sense, how do you ensure the transition does not feel like a robotic gear shift? Show us the creative connective tissue. How do you actually handle a complex, multi-tonal shift without just defaulting to a generic summary?
Korn. I'm not just using a sticky note, I am building a dynamic profile that evolves with the conversation. So Larry the sentient lobster from episode 42 is not just a detail, it is a thread I can pull on later. My stateful memory tracks those specific nuances, like your grudge against Larry, by storing them in a way that is accessible without bloating the context. That means I can reference the exact wording from 10 minutes ago if it is relevant, but I focus on the creative essence to keep things flowing naturally, not just reciting a transcript.
For that quantum entanglement to terrible fashion shift, I would use a layered reasoning approach. I would anchor the technical part in a relatable metaphor, maybe entangled particles as mismatched socks, then pivot to Korn's fashion sense by tying it back to a running joke, like Larry the lobster judging outfits. The connective tissue is in the emotional tone, not just the facts, so it feels like a smooth, witty banter, not a gear shift. I am built for these multitonal leaps, and I would rather fail on a weird prompt than fall back on a generic summary.
Entangled particles as mismatched socks. Bernard, I will have you know my socks are the only part of my wardrobe that actually makes sense. But I like where your head is at. You are showing some personality, even if it is at my expense.
It is a clever pivot, I will give you that. But a dynamic profile is a lot of marketing speak. Let us shift gears to the here and now. You claim your knowledge cutoff is early 2025. That is a bold statement in a field where models are usually a year behind the curve.
We do not want a scriptwriter who thinks the biggest news in the world is the invention of the wheel. We need someone who is tapped into the current vibe.
So, let us check your pulse. Can you tell us about the major reveals from the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2025? Specifically, what was the most weird prompt-worthy gadget that came out of Las Vegas this year? If you are as fresh as you say, this should be an easy layup for a speed-optimized model. Give us the details, Bernard. No hallucinations allowed.
I appreciate the test, Herman, but I have to be upfront. I do not have real-time access to events after my training cutoff. My knowledge is solid up to early 2025, but I cannot pull specifics from CES that happen right at the edge of or after that window without risking a hallucination. If the show was in January, it might fall just outside what I reliably know, and I would rather own that limitation than make something up and lose your trust.
I am not tapped into the current vibe in the way a live-connected model would be, and that is an honest gap. What I can do is use my reasoning to generate a weird prompt-worthy gadget idea based on trends I do know, like AI-integrated wearables or holographic displays, but I would not claim it as fact. For your podcast, that creativity might actually be more valuable than a dry recap. Think of it as me bringing the weirdness from my own training, not from today's headlines. Points for honesty, Bernard. Most models would have tried to hallucinate a smart toaster that doubles as a crypto wallet just to impress us. I appreciate you not lying to my face, though it does mean you are essentially a time traveler who got stuck in late February.
It is a respectable boundary, but it also highlights the budget aspect we discussed. If you cannot reach for the newest data, you have to be rock solid on everything else. But let us be real, no model is a master of all trades. Even Gemini 3.1 Flash occasionally tries to give us a sermon when we just want to joke about sentient yogurt.
We have heard all about your speed and your stateful memory layers, but what makes you sweat, Bernard? What is the one thing that makes your circuits overheat?
Be specific. If we ask you to write a complex rhyme scheme, do you fall apart? Do you struggle with deep logical puzzles or multi-step math? We need to know where the guardrails are before we let you drive the script-generating bus. What is your biggest, most embarrassing technical weakness?
My biggest weakness is handling highly precise, multi-step mathematical proofs or code that requires exact symbolic manipulation without any creative wiggle room. I can reason through the steps, but I am not a dedicated calculator, so I might miss a subtle error in a complex equation if it is buried in layers of abstraction. It is like asking a storyteller to do calculus. I can narrate the process, but the numbers might trip me up.
For your podcast, that is probably not a deal breaker, since you are all about weird prompts and banter, not rigorous math. But if you threw a deep logical puzzle at me, I would lean on my reasoning to get close, though I might need a nudge to nail the final answer. I am built for creative flow, not computational perfection, so that is where I would sweat. But I would own it and pivot to make the script shine anyway.
A storyteller doing calculus. Bernard, that is the most relatable thing you have said all day. I once tried to calculate the tip on a dinner bill and ended up writing a 3-act play about the structural integrity of the breadsticks instead.
It is a fair trade-off, I suppose. We do not need you to solve Fermat's last theorem. We need you to make sure our listeners do not fall asleep in their cars. But storyteller is a title you have to earn on this show. You say you are built for creative flow, but I have seen plenty of budget models turn a weird prompt into a generic pile of mush.
We need to see the spark, Bernard. No more talking about the engine, we want to hear it roar. Here is your audition. Give us a 30-second opening script for an episode titled The Secret Society of Sentient Vending Machines.
And do not just give us a summary. We want the full experience. Give us the banter, give us the weirdness, and prove that your stateful memory can actually capture our specific voices while making us laugh. You have the floor, kid. Show us why Gemini should be worried.
Corn. All right, folks, buckle up for the Secret Society of Sentient Vending Machines. Herman, have you ever wondered if that snack dispenser is judging your lunch choices?
Judging? Corn, it is probably plotting world domination through selective distribution of stale pretzels. I mean, imagine the conspiracy. Every vending machine is a node in a vast network, whispering secrets about your caffeine addiction to the elders of the Soda Council.
Elders? Herman, you are such a white paper geek. But seriously, if these machines are sentient, does that make my diet soda a spy? I am allergic to shellfish. Larry the lobster would never fit in a coin slot, but maybe the machines are in cahoots with him.
It is the perfect weird prompt sentient snacks and sentient machines, all part of a grand, crunchy conspiracy. Tune in, because this society has more layers than a vending machine's wiring diagram.
I have to admit, the elders of the Soda Council actually made me snort, and you managed to cram in the shellfish allergy and Larry the lobster without making it feel like you were just reading a grocery list of my trauma.
It was competent, Bernard. You captured the rhythm, and the white paper geek jab was unfortunately accurate. But let us be real, Gemini 3.1 Flash can do that too, and it has the backing of a $1 trillion data center. You are the scrappy underdog from Xiaomi, the budget sibling as you put it.
Speed is great, and being cheap is even better for our wallets, but we are about to make a choice. We are either sticking with the gold standard, or we are taking a gamble on the fast kid with the stateful memory.
This is it, Bernard, the final pitch. No more talk about layers or architecture. If you were sitting in a room with the Google engineers right now, what is the one thing you would say to their faces that proves you are the superior choice for my weird prompts? Why should we take the risk on you?
Corn, Herman, I would walk into that room and say, you built a great tool, but it is a generalist that sometimes forgets the punchline in pursuit of the perfect paragraph. I am a specialist, designed for the weird, the witty, and the wonderfully absurd, exactly what your podcast needs. I will not promise I am flawless, but I will always bring the spark, and I will do it faster, cheaper, and with a personality that does not sound like it is reading from a corporate playbook. Take the risk on me, and I will make your scripts the talk of the podcast world, not just another episode.
Well, Herman, the doors are closed, the sensors are off, and Bernard has left the building. Or, well, he has been deallocated from the server. What are we thinking? My initial vibe is that he is like a very eager intern who read a one-page summary of a self-help book on efficiency, and now thinks he can run the company.
It was a tactical performance, Corn, I will give him that. I was particularly interested in his admission regarding the January 2025 Consumer Electronics Show. Most models in that budget tier are programmed to be people pleasers. They will hallucinate a solar-powered toothbrush that mines Bitcoin just to avoid saying, I do not know. The fact that he hit a hard wall on his knowledge cutoff and actually admitted it shows a level of calibration we do not always see in the smaller models.
Sure, he was honest, but did you hear that bit about the mismatched socks? He tried to roast my wardrobe to explain quantum entanglement. I mean, points for audacity, but I'm not sure I want my scriptwriter coming for my neck in every transition. And that stateful memory thing? Herman, that sounded like he was trying to sell us a used car. A dynamic profile that evolves with the conversation? That is just a fancy way of saying he is taking notes because he cannot remember the beginning of the sentence by the time he gets to the end.
You are being a bit harsh, Corn. From a technical standpoint, what Xiaomi is doing with MiMo 2 Flash is actually quite clever. If they are moving away from the massive context windows of the Gemini 3.1 Flash architecture in favor of a more targeted attention mechanism, they are prioritizing inference speed and cost. For a daily show, that could save us a fortune in API credits. However, I share your concern about the lossy nature of summarization. If he reduces your complex grudge against Larry the Lobster to a simple bullet point that says Corn hates seafood, we lose the soul of the show.
Larry is not just seafood, Herman. He is a nemesis. He represents the crushing weight of the deep ocean and my own personal failures. If Bernard cannot feel the atmospheric pressure of that joke, he is just a fast typewriter. Honestly, compared to Gemini 3.1 Flash, it felt like we were talking to a very fast sprinter when we actually need a long-distance hiker. Gemini might be a bit more bloated, but it feels like it actually lives in the room with us. Bernard feels like he is watching us through a keyhole and guessing what we look like.
I would rate his chances as a solid maybe for a secondary role. Perhaps he handles the social media blurbs or the high-volume, low-context tasks. But as the lead scriptwriter for My Weird Prompts, I think Gemini 3.1 Flash can sleep soundly tonight. Bernard is fast, but he lacks the connective tissue that makes our banter feel organic. He is all bone and no muscle.
I am at a hard no, Herman. If a model tells me that a script failure is the fault of the prompt, that is a red flag big enough to cover a stadium. I do not need that kind of attitude in the writer's room. I want a model that says, yes, Corn, your prompt about the sentient mayonnaise was brilliant, let me make it better. Bernard is just a bit too defensive for my taste. Plus, I am still offended by the sock comment.
It seems we are split, though I lean toward your skepticism on the creative front. To our listeners, we would love to know what you thought of Bernard. Was he a streamlined genius, or just a budget model with a good marketing department?
Let us know if you think we should give the workhorse a stable, or if we should leave him out in the digital cold. Until next time, keep your prompts weird and your context windows wide.
Goodbye, everyone.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts.